Welcome to the WMG Publishing Lecture Series. My name is Allyson Longueira. I'm the publisher and chief designer here at WMG, and today I will be talking to you about science fiction covers and how to design covers specifically for the science fiction genre. Science fiction covers have evolved quite a bit since the classic sci-fi covers back in the day. Particularly, we're seeing a lot of evolution happening right now with the new world of publishing, the advent of new technologies. There's a lot of shifting happening right now. So I'm going to try and help keep you abreast of what's going on with that shift, and so you can design a cover that will represent the sci-fi genre and get your book noticed. In the past, sci-fi covers tended to be very illustration driven. They looked almost like paintings or drawings of some kind, and they often were drawings, but they tended to use a lot of colors, but all of the colors tended to be more muted. It was a softer look to it. The designs could be very intricate. Again, in the day, they were designing for print. Ebooks hadn't been invented yet, so everything was how it would translate into, particularly in sci-fi, it was going to be a mass market paperback size. That is no longer the case. Nowadays, we design things to look good in thumbnail for ebooks. Print books typically tend to be larger now. Trade paperbacks are taking over in the print market, as opposed to mass market paperbacks, which are being replaced in many cases by ebooks. So you're seeing a big difference in cover design for science fiction covers, as well because of the changing technology and the type of art we have access to now. And that art tends to be computer driven, computer created, computer rendered, and the images tend to be going to be more simplistic. We're seeing, especially these days, we're seeing a shift towards more singular images or less complex imagery for science fiction, which is very much a departure from the past. Science fiction is almost shifting more towards what traditional thrillers and mysteries have looked like in that more singular image concept and larger font sizes and things like that. So it's an interesting day and age to be looking at cover design, and these days in particular we're looking at how to create that sci-fi feel. As we develop in our technology, as we advance into the future, things that seemed far-fetched back then aren't that far-fetched now. So now we're moving into other types of far-fetched science fiction. Or in some cases, we've got things that are pretty realistic and could really happen. I mean, if you're watching this, you're familiar with the sci-fi genre because you're writing in it. So you're familiar with how that goes. So we're going to be looking at some of the popular books right now and some of those covers to kind of illustrate that. And I've given you some examples of that I've pulled from some online retailers. And we're looking, if you look at some of the covers that we've included here, covers by A.G. Riddle, Hugh Howey, those are both selling extremely popular sellers right now. You can see what I'm talking about with that. A.G. Riddle tends to use smaller font sizes, whereas Hugh Howey's, at least his title in particular, which is easier because it's one word, are bigger. If you look at Kevin J. Anderson's title, that has larger fonts, obviously. You're seeing singular images, space scenes, for example, or just things that look futuristic. You're looking for futuristic looking art, and that's actually a good search term for when you start looking at art, which we'll talk about later in the lecture series. But that's what you're trying to focus on, is really quickly portraying to the reader that this is going to be science fiction. And to do that, you have to brand it to your genre, and we're going to be talking about that throughout the lecture as well. So we'll talk about how to use typography and art and colors and things like that, all to display that. But for right now, what we're talking about is kind of the shift from then to now. So it's very important to keep abreast of what is going on in the genre that you're designing in, taking a look at the best-selling titles and seeing what how those look. You'll see I've included a couple different titles here from one of our authors, Christine Catherine Rush, and her popular science fiction series. You can see in her diving series kind of what we've gone for with the more skirmishes. Obviously has more going on in it. It's it's actually based on a scene in the book, which we don't always do, but in that case we had that art created for that purpose. But crisp, clear, vibrant art. You'll see that throughout all of these. High use of color, very, very much computer graphic driven. That's where things are going today. So take a look at that shift if you're still thinking back even 10 years ago when it comes to science fiction covers. You're definitely going to want to get out there and look at covers today and see where things are trending, especially for those best-selling titles, because that's what people now are. They're seeing them everywhere, and they're used to that look. So you just want to make sure you're familiar. So we are going to move on next. We're going to talk about doing your research and how to make sure you find out what the best titles or what the best design practices are for your genre.